Make cheap traditional fishing bait surprisingly effective. Hello, fishing fanatics. Happy new day, and welcome back to Fishing 24 Hours, your go-to channel for practical fishing tips, tricks, and stories that make every trip legendary. Have you ever noticed someone using homemade bait straight from their kitchen? You're barely spending a dime, yet pulling in fish left and right, while your store-bought bait leaves your float sitting still? I've been there, and a lesson from a seasoned angler changed my game. Today, we'll explore how to make cheap, traditional fishing bait that's surprisingly effective, helping you fill your bucket without breaking the bank. This happened at Toledo Bend Lake, right on the Louisiana-Texas line. One crisp morning, I was fishing with a $5 pack of store-bought bait, sitting next to an older guy about 60, named Tom. He had a small plastic bag with just cornmeal, mashed sweet potatoes, and some oatmeal. But in just over an hour, his bucket was brimming with 4 carp over 2 pounds each, while my float barely twitched. Curious, I asked what his secret was. Tom grinned and said, "It's not about expensive bait, buddy. Traditional bait, made cheap and right, matches what fish love. It's all about mixing and placing it properly." He shared his recipe for carp bait. Take 2 cups of mashed sweet potatoes. Mix with 1 cup of roasted cornmeal, half a cup of oatmeal, and a splash of warm water. Then form into small balls that break apart slowly underwater. I followed his lead, dropped the bait near the bottom as he advised. In less than 15 minutes, my float sank. I set the hook, and a 4-pound carp thrashed the water. The thrill was unreal, and I've been hooked on traditional bait ever since. Today, I'll share how to make cheap fishing bait that works like a charm for freshwater fishing. In this video, we'll discover why traditional bait is so effective, how to make bait tailored for fish like carp, crappie, catfish, and bass, how to choose the right depth and timing, and tips to avoid common mistakes. I've got 2 real-life stories from the US to inspire you, plus practical fishing techniques and beginner fishing tips to master this skill. These methods work in rivers, lakes, ponds, or canals across America, from Toledo Bend to Arkansas waterways. So, grab a cold soda, get comfy, and let's dive into making traditional fishing bait that's cheap and effective. Why cheap traditional fishing bait works wonders. Why does traditional fishing bait, made from simple kitchen ingredients, make fish bite like crazy? 3 big reasons. First, natural ingredients like sweet potatoes, cornmeal, and oatmeal have familiar scents and textures, so fish don't hesitate to bite, unlike some processed baits. Second, these baits release a subtle but far-reaching aroma, attracting fish from a distance, especially in big lakes or rivers. Third, homemade recipes are easy to tweak, letting you customize for different fish, seasons, or locations, from small ponds to wide rivers. These qualities make traditional bait a secret weapon for freshwater fishing. Many anglers think pricier bait guarantees better results, but fish don't care about cost. Carp love the sweet scent of potatoes, crappie go for cornmeal, catfish can't resist smelly fish scraps. The bait matches their taste, hits the right depth, and is cast at the right time. Fish will bite hard even with bait costing pennies. The key is knowing what fish want, mixing bait correctly, and placing it strategically. With traditional fishing bait, you'll turn any spot into a fish magnet, even if others are fishing nearby. Let's jump into practical recipes for homemade bait that catch fish like a pro. Traditional bait recipe for carp, grass carp, and catfish first. Let's make bait for bottom feeders like carp, grass carp, and catfish. These fish scour lake and river beds for natural foods like worms, grains, or scraps. Here's a simple, effective recipe. Take 2 cups of mashed sweet potatoes, cooked soft, mix with 1 cup of roasted cornmeal, half a cup of oatmeal, and a splash of warm water for stickiness. Form into small balls, not too sticky, so they break apart slowly underwater, creating a food cloud that draws fish in. Use a 1/16 to 1/8 ounce sinker. Set your float so the bait sits on or just above the bottom, 2 to 4 inches from the hook. When fishing for bottom feeders, patience is everything. Carp and catfish often suck in bait, spit it out to test, then swallow. If your float twitches lightly, don't rush. Wait for a full dip or steady pull before setting the hook gently to avoid spooking them. Cast in deeper areas, 3 to 10 feet, near grass or roots where bottom feeders gather. At lakes like Toledo Bend, Target muddy bottoms or submerged brush. Prime spots for carp fishing and catfish fishing with this cheap bait. So traditional bait recipe for crappie and bluegill next. Bait for midwater feeders like crappie and bluegill. These fish cruise 1.5 to 5 feet deep, snapping up insects, small fish, or plant bits floating by. Try this recipe. Mix 1.5 cups of steamed cornmeal with 1 cup of fish. Meal available at feed stores or made from dried fish scraps. Add a bit of water to form small, firm balls. If fishing in fast-moving water, mix in some clay to slow the dissolve. Set your float so the bait hangs mid-water, 2 to 4 feet from the bottom, perfect for crappie fishing. For mid-water fish, twitch your rod lightly every 2 to 3 seconds to mimic moving prey. Crappie bite fast, so when your float jerks hard or dips suddenly, set the hook quickly, but gently to avoid breaking the line. Cast in shallow areas near shore, around grass or lily pads, where crappie and bluegill thrive. In southern canals or lakes, look for slow-moving water or shady spots. These are hot spots for crappie fishing, with homemade bait. Traditional bait recipe for catfish and base for bottom-dwelling or surface-hunting fish like catfish and bass. Use a smelly bait. Blend fish scraps like sardine or mackerel trimmings with half a cup of cornmeal for binding. For catfish, keep it simple. Mash the fish scraps, mix with cornmeal, and form small balls. For base, use live bait like minnows or artificial lures like soft plastic worms. Or make a dough with fish meal and cornmeal, adding a splash of fish oil for extra scent. Hook live minnows through the back to swim naturally, or pull lures with a fast stop. Fast retrieve to trigger base strikes. Drop fish scrap bait on the bottom for catfish, keeping it still to let the scent spread. For bass, cast near lily pads, floating grass, or shaded banks. Using a stronger 8 to 12 pound test line, as bass fight hard. When your float jerks violently, or the water splashes, set the hook fast. In marshes or lakes, target areas with overhanging trees or weeds for bass fishing, and avoid dry branches to prevent snags. This traditional bait is a budget-friendly winner for freshwater fishing. Best times and tips to boost your catch with traditional bait timing. Your casts is critical with traditional bait. Carp and catfish feed heaviest early morning from 4:30 to 7 a.m. or late afternoon. From 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., scouring the bottom. Crappie and bluegill are active midday or after rain, when insects drift. Base hunt best at dusk or night, stalking surface prey. Cloudy days or post-train periods are ideal, as fish are less wary. Watch the water. Murky means bottom feeders are active. Clear water favors surface fish, key for planning your fishing trips. A smart trick is chumming lightly before casting. For carp, scatter some cornmeal or oatmeal near your spot. Wait 10 to 15 minutes for fish to gather. For crappie, sprinkle fish meal or cornmeal to create a food cloud. For base, toss a few minnows near weeds to stir them up. Chum sparingly to avoid overfeeding. This turns your spot into a feeding frenzy, boosting your chances of catching fish with cheap bait. Real-life story, Arkansas Canal success with cornmeal bait. Here's another real-life story to show the power of traditional bait. At a small canal in Arkansas, I met a guy named Mike, who used only boiled corn kernels and slow-dissolving oatmeal bait. He said, "Crappie and bluegill love the light scent of corn and oats. The trick is letting it break apart slowly so fish feel it's natural." That day, he landed 5 fat crappie, and I tried his recipe, casting cornmeal bait mid-water, and pulled in 3 myself. My bucket was full. And it felt amazing to catch so much with such simple bait. Practical tips for making and using traditional bait to make traditional bait like a pro? Prepare carefully. Use fresh ingredients, no mold, like sweet potatoes, fresh cornmeal, or fish scraps. Bring a variety of baits, sweet potato mix, cornmeal balls, fish scraps, to test what works. Use a sensitive rod, strong line, and thin float, checking for wear. Watch the water for bubbles, ripples, or fish shadows to guess where fish feed. Cast at the right depth, use the right bait, and time your hook set. If no bites after 15 minutes, adjust depth or spot. Adjust bait consistency for water conditions. In fast currents, add clay for stickier bait. In still water, make it looser to dissolve slowly. Test a small amount first. If fish bite, use more. Avoid over-wetting the mix, as it won't hold on the hook. These freshwater fishing tips ensure your traditional bait works like a charm, drawing fish in every cast. Safety tips for a fun fishing trip. Safety is key when fishing. Avoid loud noises or casting shadows on the water, as bass and crappie spook easily. Don't switch baits too fast. Fish need time to approach, especially carp. In deep canals or rivers, wear a life jacket. Be cautious wading. Avoid muddy banks that can collapse. These fishing safety tips keep your trip fun and safe, letting you focus on catching fish with your homemade bait. Beginner fishing tips? Start with traditional bait. New to fishing, traditional bait is a great way to learn. Try a lake for carp with sweet potato bait on the bottom, or fish crappie in a canal with cornmeal bait mid-water. Note where bites come, like bass near weeds. Don't worry about missed sets. Practice waiting for the right dip. Making traditional bait builds observation and patience, setting you up for big catches, perfect for beginner fishing tips. To level up, practice casting at the right depth, twitching for mid-water fish, or retrieving lures for bass. Spend trips at lakes, canals, or marshes, timing hook sets. Choose fresh ingredients like sweet potatoes, cornmeal, or lively minnows. In busy spots, find a quiet corner to keep fish calm. These fishing techniques make you a fish whisperer with cheap, effective bait. Conclusion: master freshwater fishing with traditional bait. Fishing doesn't always need expensive bait or gear. Sometimes traditional bait from your kitchen outperforms store-bought options. 3 words: bait, depth, timing. Every cast with the right bait, at the right depth, at the right time, feels like unlocking a fish vault. When the float dips slow, my heart races, hands grip the rod. That's a moment only anglers get. Whether you're a rookie or a veteran, these traditional fishing bait recipes will make you a master of any fishing spot. That's it, folks. We've covered how to make cheap traditional fishing bait, from sweet potatoes to fish scraps, plus tips to avoid mistakes. I hope you're pumped to try these fishing techniques. Hit like, share with your fishing crew, and subscribe to Fishing 24 Hours for more killer fishing tips. Got a traditional bait story from America's lakes or rivers? Drop it in the comments. I'm all ears. Tight lines and big catches. See you next time.